going through the wind-blowing season. She clung to the door, looking at him. Surprised eyes mixed with happiness, happiness only in those who have been waiting for each other for more than 20 years to understand. 22 years ago, she was still a young girl born in a sunny and poor countryside. At the age of 18, according to her mother's wishes, she sadly put aside her dream of architecture and entered pedagogy. However, she often escapes to the architecture school to play, also builds a stand, and paints as well as the real thing. Then she met him, an architecture student with flowing hair, but with no trace of romance in his resolute eyes. During the student exchange at the beginning of the class, by chance, two eyes met in the middle of the crowd, in the sound of rock. Then love. He was only 2 years older than her, but with poise. With you, I feel protected. She is like an odd shadow in the middle of life. When he came, the cool wind blew deep into her soul. Summer vacation in the 3rd year, she took him home to debut. He had to say a lot before she agreed to let him go home. I'm afraid of how many things separate me and you. He waved his hand, pulled her across the road cut in the middle of the vast field. He smiled like a child, rolled up his pants above his knees, waded through the field to pick some fragrant rice branches with the smell of milk and put them in her hand. Her mother is worried, the son is rich, so he is not suitable to live in the countryside, so he is still a poor country. He didn't say anything, just kept imitating her mother to order food, find crabs, and catch snails. The day he returned, he walked barefoot along the country road, with his own hands, each piece of thatched roof, and built each broken table leg. His mother kept looking at him and smiling. The house was finally warmed by the breath of a man. After she graduated, he took her home to meet his mother. She trembled like a child for the first time at school. If it weren't for him to squeeze her hand, she might not have had the courage to set foot in the house with the cold iron gate and illusion. However, even with him, she could not walk through that gate with dignity again. His mother could not get rid of her obsession with the teaching profession. In the past, his father left his mother and children, at that time he was only 2 years old, to build a family with a teacher in the village. Mother looked at her for a long time with that hazy memory and shook her head, no. The heavy iron gate closed behind her as if it were a ready-made grave to bury her youth. He stood there, painfully watching her dash away in the rain. He couldn't put his mother and sister on the scale to measure. He couldn't choose even though he knew he had a baby coming, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. He closed his eyes. The gray water of life flows back into my heart. So you lost her. Later, even if I try to remember, I don't know how I and my mother were able to go through those days of imprisonment. Every time the child thrashed in her stomach, she would bite her teeth to forget, not daring to cherish the happiness of being a mother. Just thinking about the child brings a flood of intense memories. We'll remember him, his mother, so much that he longs to be erased, forgotten, light, like death. But dying is easy, living is hard. So, you must live. She became more and more confused every time she saw him often come quietly to her lonely house, watch her peacefully with diapers, shirts, socks, towels, and then go. Sometimes, there are people who love each other very much, but they have a separate fate. I believe there is an unacceptable fate between you and me. But as long as she can still see each other calmly, she will still be able to live with that, until she gives birth, then her children grow up. There will come a time when she will find a fate near him. She only kept that belief until the baby was born. His mother came every day during her confinement, warning, begging, trying to find ways to separate her beautiful son, like he was carved out of her, as if she used her power and suffering to separate sister and brother. I don't understand women who have been betrayed. In them, in his mother, there was some mysterious force that made them cling to what they had. Please. Leave both him and his baby alone. You have the right to live a free life as you please. She left the house, left him, left the despair that haunted his mother. Mom ran her hand through her hair and told her that it would all be over. As for you, I don't know if it means death or not. Her mother ended her peaceful days in the Highlands. She was left alone in a spacious green tiled house. Seeing her alone, several older men came to her house, sending sincere and simple intentions. With everyone, she just listens all the time, laughs all the time, and then refuses all the time. I don't know what I want in life. She simply wants to keep the balance that helps her survive from the day he left her, from the day her son was taken away from her. No need to change anything. This afternoon, her school welcomed a group of teachers to practice. In the heavy rain and wind at the beginning of the season, she stood still, pale, looking at the boy who was the head of the delegation, who was eager for the principal. Yes, after arranging accommodation, you must definitely take me to meet Ms. Duyan, teacher. She turned away, running away into the harsh rain and wind. She did not dare to stand back, dare not step forward to face the boy, the clone of him 20 years ago. Maybe her vision was clear? You know, things are different now? And there are countless other things that she may have spread out on the dark forest paths. After all, the past is still the most difficult and unpredictable burden to shed. She reported being sick, asked to take a week off to avoid the boy. It finds home. She closed the door and turned off the light as if she was gone. Early in the morning, she went to the fields to water the tomatoes, tripping over the student's feet, curled up on the doorstep, covered in canvas and covered with coffee bags. He scratched his head, turned to the other side, talking nonsense. Mom, don't leave me. Don't leave me. She knelt down and hugged the baby. It woke up, chirping, and clung to her sister, its sleepy voice hoarse, anxious. It's me. The wind blew the budding petals of the forest flowers. The wind is like a cold bare arm caressing the green hills. The mountainside is still dim in the mist, the occasional sound of wild cocks crowing dispels the silence. She went to the door, stood there looking closely at the thin figure coming up from the bottom of the slope. It's you, the brother of the past, with eyes that are far away but so close. He was standing there, in the early autumn cold, in the winds that blew through grief, reaching out his hand to try to catch her. Is it just a dream? The dream of someone who has been waiting for more than 22 years. If it's just a dream, then forever, I wish I would never wake up. That night, in the warm fire room, there were 3 people silently hugging each other and sobbing. He took her down the mountain. Her steps beside him chirped like a child just learning to walk. That's right, this happy road has been absent from her for a long time. His house with heavy iron gates has long been without his mother. Light an incense stick for the deceased, she gently leaned into his lap, whispering, "Can you bless us, Mother?" There was no reply. But that day the city was suddenly so windy that no one could hear what they were saying to each other. There are only tears that fall lightly, melt in the wind, fly away.